Hi, I'm Lil Phizzy, and welcome to Cameron's Cryptid Classroom. On today's show, he's talking about the slide rock bolter. So here he is, Uncle Cam.
What's going on, friends? And thanks again for clicking here on the Cryptid Classroom. I think I've got something this week. I think I found the winner. You know, you go through finding crazy stories and wild cryptids, and I think I found the winner. Pay no attention to this mic stand. The other ones may not be with us right now. It may or may not have gotten tangled up in some things, and it may or may not have taken a spill. But this is the old one. I've got a better one coming, so bear with me. Anyway, before we get into that, check this out. I got an Aztec death whistle in a Bigfoot cast. We'll talk about more on that on the podcast and where you can get one of these if you want one. This is a good buddy of mine made this for me. X of all trades. But anyhow, crazy Aztec whistle, right? I think I have found the craziest thing. So big ups again to Lil Phizzy. He's always helping me out, right? This thing that I'm going to talk about, I don't even know. I can't even imagine. And that's a lot. This is the slide rock bolter from Colorado. For those of you that are familiar with this, you can agree it's a crazy idea. It's a crazy story. For those of you that's not familiar with this, that's what we're here for. We're going to catch you up. So, this is what goes down. Back in 1910, a fellow named William Thomas Cox, published a book called Fearsome Creatures of the Lumber Woods with a few desert and mountain beasts. And in this story, Mr. Cox claims that this was relayed to him by lumberjacks in the area and even some miners, that this massive creature lived on the side of a mountain. Now, what you have to picture is a blue whale. Yeah, this thing's right. It's working. I said it. A blue whale. Picture a blue whale, beady little eyes, right? Ginormous mouth, what they said looks like hooks that could just grab things as it came by with its mouth open. And this thing would lay up on these ridges at a 45-degree angle. They said it had to at least be 45 degrees or greater, but it would lay up on these ridges, and it would use its big wide tail, and it would hook over the ridge, and it would just lay in wait. And even back then, of course, Colorado has always been full of tourists and people coming to hike and to see this beautiful area. So the story goes that these loggers and these outdoorsmen would be watching, and they would be hikers and tourists. And if they were groups that would be out on their own camping or whatever, that this slide rock bolter would wait for them to group up in these little basin areas as they're walking along these trails. And it would release its giant tail, slide down, mouth open, grab a mouthful of tourists, 6, 8, 10, who knows, right? And the momentum that it had sliding down a mountain, it would grab them in its mouth and slide up the other side and then work its way around and clasp its tail and wait. And they said you would see these big slides with laid down trees and displaced rocks where you could tell something had pushed its way through there. I know, it sounds completely insane, right? Well, it's so insane that there's even more to it, that apparently there was a forest ranger got involved in this, right? So these guys are coming forward. They're telling Mr. Cox all this. The lumberjacks are telling them, hey, we've seen it. We've heard it. We don't go looking for it, because they said that it doesn't live in the chutes, that it will just bust out of the trees sliding and grab you. So this forest ranger decides, I've had enough. I've had enough of these stories. I've had enough of these things. I know how to defeat the slide rock bolter. So he builds a dummy. So he takes him I don't even know how he did it, pants, top, who knows. I'm assuming a scarecrow, ideally. And he puts it out there, but he fills it full of black powder and blasting caps, right? Like dynamite. It's just packed full of dynamite. And he sets it up there, and he's like, this is going to be the end of the bolter, right? And sure enough, however he pulls it off, this thing comes sliding down, grabs the thing, slides up in the bottom, I guess, as it's going, and it wouldn't, he's got the zzz, like we're talking about, Acme cartoons, slide it down, and he blue bolter all over the place, right? Everything blew up. Usually you don't have a real solid area of where some of this took place. You have it in the forest outside of here, in the valley from here, in this valley, but you don't have it nailed down. Well, we have it nailed down. Rico, Colorado. The story goes that when it exploded and he blew the bolter to pieces, that it leveled buildings in Rico, Colorado that were never rebuilt. Blew them down, never rebuilt. And that, I would say, seems to be the end of the bolter. That seems to be where it all stopped. Early 1900s, everything ceased. There are tales that people were like, no, they're still out there. They're just laying in wait, or they're in caves, or they're in old mines. It almost lends itself to some idea of like a rock creature, the way it's kind of described, its colors. There's a lot of, there's 4 or 5 different tales or stories that you would hear of descriptions. Like I said, the shape is the whale, but the colors could be off. What it does seem to point to, though, is nothing more than crazy hoaxes or tales that were involved during the disputes of the miners and the loggers in this area, and people, conservatives and, or I'm sorry, conservationists in this area trying to maybe not allow so much strip mining, maybe fight the logging companies. There seems to be a big wash there to where it could have been simply nothing more than disinformation, something that would help keep people maybe away from there, or maybe in return bring people back to look for it. Who knows? There seems to be a lot of it. But like I said, this is the craziest story that I have been able to find out of crazy stories. So if you take the craziest story of crazy stories, this to me is it. A giant whale-like creature that can slide down a mountain, gobbling up people, up to the other side. Nobody will go defeat it, but one lone forest ranger blows it to pieces. And that appears to be the end of the Slide Rock Bolter. So what could it have been? If it's not a story, what could it have been? And I'm going to leave that up to you. If it's not a hoax and it wasn't a story and it was truly something there that these men dispatched and there's no more proof of it, down in the comments, what do y'all think it is? What do you think it is? And thank you so much for the last comments on the video. That's a lot of kindness, and I do appreciate it. We appreciate it. The support, the love you give us, the only way we can show you how much is just to keep doing more things. And I don't know for a fact, but I think I've got him about 80% there. I'm going to get Big Phizzy, and he's working on some stuff now that he wants to have a little video series and have some things to share. So hopefully we get to start pumping out a little bit more. We're getting this down. We're flowing, right? We're going. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening, so much for watching, for liking, subscribing, the whole thing. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to leave you to think about the Slide Rock Bolter. It's not much. It's not a huge story. It's not meant to be. It's just something that I think is insane, but I love the idea of it, and I'd love to get y'all's thoughts on it. I'm going to step out of here. I'll let Lil Phizzy wrap this baby up, and we will catch you next week here on The Classroom. Peace, y'all.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, so hit the bell, like, and subscribe. That's all, folks.